Então, para coordenar as atividades da mesa de trabalhos e também apresentar o mini currículo dos palestrantes, eu convido o professor Aldo Roberto Ometo, da Escola de Engenharia de São Carlos, da USP.
Alô? Pronto. Bom dia, gostaria de agradecer imensamente o convite para participar dessa mesa. Professor Eduardo Zancum, em nome de toda a coordenação do Congresso, nós estamos nessas 2 semanas recebendo a comitiva da Fundação Ellen MacArthur Foundation, que trabalha e lidera praticamente em termos globais as iniciativas relacionadas à economia circular, tanto no âmbito acadêmico quanto em cooperação com organizações e também governos. E a USP tem um programa de economia circular, sendo uma das únicas 7 universidades do mundo consideradas pioneiras nesse tema, onde realmente desenvolve atividades de ensino, pesquisa e inovação com relação à economia circular, é a única do Hemisfério Sul. Esse programa está sendo coordenado por mim, mas já temos 60 docentes envolvidos, diversas unidades da USP, principalmente as engenharias, né, a POLI e nós lá em São Carlos. Nós temos a presença muito forte também da Exalc, com todas as atividades, sistemas regenerativos de agricultura. Nós temos também a FEA, tanto em Ribeirão quanto aqui em São Paulo, e também a Faculdade de Direito. Então, principalmente nesses eixos, estão sendo os elementos centrais para essa nossa cooperação. E a gente convida a comunidade do desenvolvimento de produto, de inovação aqui do Instituto e das demais universidades também, a se integrarem e poderem verificar oportunidades de pesquisas e oportunidades de colaborações nesse tema. Então, com a vinda dele, surgiu a oportunidade que o professor Eduardo Zancum conseguiu organizar. Agradecemos também ao professor Henrique, que gentilmente cedeu também um espaço desse período para que a gente pudesse discutir um pouquinho toda a questão do desenvolvimento do produto, da parte de servitização, junto com a economia circular e essa relação. Então, inicialmente, eu vou chamar o Ken Webster, que é o diretor de inovação da Fundação Ellen MacArthur. Ele é o fellow da Universidade de Cranfield e pesquisador sênior, também fellow da Universidade de Exeter, ambas universidades na Inglaterra. O seu último livro, que é The Circular Economy, A Wealth of Flows, e ele lidera, portanto, é o diretor global de inovação da Fundação. Nós vamos ter 20 minutos de apresentação de cada um dos debatedores, do Ken e do professor Henrique Rosenfeld. Então, inicialmente agora vamos ouvir o Ken Webster, depois a gente chama o Henrique para uma apresentação e depois fazemos aqui a mesa para debate junto com toda a audiência. Tudo bem? Então, Ken Webster, please, welcome.
Hello there. Good morning. just set this slide set up. Very short, 20 minutes. Do we have just work on this? There we go. Thank you. I don't really like microphones. I'm just going to see if probably hear me anyway. But are you recording it though? Yeah, so you might need the microphone. Yes. See, I may be old, but I can spot these things. Okay, I will have to struggle with the microphone. Here's Ellen MacArthur. It's reasonable to say who she is, because she's not known in Brazil or Latin America particularly, but she was the fastest woman to sail around the world single-handedly in around 2005. And she set up this foundation because she wanted to see a better approach to resources, and she didn't want the approach which meant people were blamed individually. She wanted to see a system that worked better. So most of my remarks are around systems, and today it'll be around servitization a little bit. On the right-hand side is our logo, which is very familiar to most of you as a representation of an embedded economy, an economy embedded within the social and environmental context. So bear that in mind as we go on. Now, what's the circular economy? That's fairly simple. I shall use this diagram because it has the essential characteristics. On the left-hand side, a linear economy is take, make, and dispose. It runs on fossil fuel energy, and it mostly produces waste. Yes, there are lots of shiny things in it, this building, the cars on the street, the huge city of Sao Paulo, etc. But it is essentially a waste economy, because that's most of its output. Now, using insights from Braungart and McDonough in their famous book Cradle to Cradle, they identified two cycles for a productive economy. Both take their insights from living systems, but they distinguish between a consumption pathway on the left of this second diagram, which was to take, consume, and then rebuild through the biosphere. Consumption is a reality. We're not avoiding consumption. Living systems don't avoid consumption. Nature sometimes looks like the verb to eat. I eat, he eats, she eats, they eat, continually. So consumption is fine if it enriches the system. Consumption is not fine if it degrades the system. So their ideas were to have a consumption cycle of things which fitted the biosphere. Now, things that humans make and which can't be degraded properly through the biosphere, they called technical nutrients. The other ones they call biological nutrients. Notice the word nutrients, it's food for the system. That's their key thing. You can't go circular unless it is food rather than toxins or indigestible stuff. On the right-hand side, their emphasis was, with durables, with products that last, was to shift from creating them to destroying them, move from that to putting them in use for an appropriate period or an extended period, recovering them and rebuilding the value of that capital if at all possible. So it's make, use, and return as an emphasis compared to make, consume, and enrich via the soils and the forests and so on. It's important to have that split, and underneath there it says it runs on renewables. So that's the ambition, is to move from a fossil fuel throughput economy to one which deals with resources in either one of two loops, and products are designed to fit. You can't get to the end of a linear economy and say, oh, we better tidy it up now. That doesn't work. It has to be designed to fit the system. So there are three main things involved in this circular economy from the resource point of view: design, engineering, because it's a technical question a lot of the time. And the other one is business models. Because you've got to have a different business if you're treating resources differently, or you need a number of different business models. These are quite challenging. But this is the diagram that's most often associated with the foundation. And I'm here, by the way, with Joe Miller at the front, my colleague who works in higher education with me. This is lovingly called the butterfly diagram. It's got the linear economy down the middle, and it's got the wings are the representation of the important flows back. Now, I mentioned business models. This diagram was put together by Martin Stuckdey from McKinsey, because McKinsey were asked to look at the potential value of reworking the resource flows. And in their analysis, notice the two cycles, biological and technical. On the right-hand side, inside the red circle, the red oval, the most value can be found by maintaining manufactured capital. In other words, extend product life, increase utilization, and shift from selling products to services. So the theme of the day becomes a bit clearer. Because recycling out there on the edge is not much use. Yeah, sure, there is business in it. Plenty of business in recycling, but there's not as much return as if you were able to work with capital that had been maintained, which had higher utilization and was designed so that it would suit extended product life, that it would suit materials recovery. So you get these themes intermixing all the time. Good design to enable the delivery of different business models, and engineering, if you like, the reverse supply chains at some point. But everything does decay, and it needs to be rebuilt with the use of quite a lot of energy. Now, whether that can be from renewables, we don't know yet. But okay, there's a missing link here. This is all old-fashioned. This is all ancient history. So what's new? And what's new, as you will all know of your age group, is the digital, the ICT revolution. That has enabled the circular economy to rise up as an idea that's much more workable now than it ever was before. Sure, you've always had remanufacturing and refurbishment. Sure, you've always had rental and leasing. But now with digital, you can do that in a really quite different way, whether it's Airbnb, quite controversial, but Airbnb, upping the utilization of properties. There are downsides to that. Or Uber as a platform to enable taxis to be, or ordinary cars to be taxis. Again, it's quite controversial. But the point is, it's very disruptive of the relationship between people, resources, and the economy. On the left-hand side, in the biological cycle, which we're not going to deal with today, the emphasis again is on natural capital. In other words, the circular economy must close the loop and slow the flow. And the linear economy is all about throughput. The circular economy is about stocks, flows, and feedback, because it's a more systemic view. And that's okay if you're a business person too, because you need your capital to deliver your goods and services, and you want to make sure you understand the customer. You know, stocks, flows, and feedback. Only this is on the big scale. So unless you can close the loop to regenerate natural capital, or maintain manufactured capital, or restore it, there are problems. So we're not going to do so much on that side, but on the left-hand side, but regenerative agriculture is something we're interested here in Brazil with USP. Now, you won't be able to read all this, but this is products of service. You'll be familiar with this, servitization. This is what, well, I'm going to put it this way. This is certainly a part of the operations of a more circular economy. And all I want to draw your attention to is that product service systems are a mixture of products and services and they can be orientated towards adding something to selling a product, orientated towards the user, and orientated towards the results. Walter Stauhel's a good one to read about the performance economy, and I'll just give you one example of that one. Schiphol, the airport in Holland, one of their lounges has thousands of light bulbs. They don't buy light bulbs anymore, they buy a service for light on the surfaces, and they pay a subsidiary of Philips to provide that. Now, why do that? Light's easy to change the bulb, isn't it? The reason is that Philips can use the latest technology, expensive bulbs, which have very low energy use, because the fee they charge Schiphol includes the energy costs. So it incentivizes the firm to put in the very best equipment. They don't have to put in new either, by the way, if they've got refurbished, because they're not being judged on, you sold me a new light bulb. They're being judged on, is this lighting working for me? Because you promised it would. So you can see just in that one example how it's flipped around. That sort of performance contract really both saves resources, creates additional revenue, connects better with the customer, and allows you to increase the rate of change of technology without having to persuade the customer to have it, because the customer is only interested in the lighting, the performance. So it's product, user, or results orientated, and there's some others, and the jokey one on the right is teleportation, which is not quite available yet, except in Star Trek. Right, this is another characterization of a circular economy, which is around aspects of product service. A linear economy, you lose your material functionality, and it's lost, it's below the line, as it were. But with keeping at the highest value at all times, the circular economy allows revenue over a longer period and in different stages of the cycle. It's not a perpetual motion machine. Everything does wear out, but if you've got the right business model, you can make it work. However, a few challenges. Sorry, this is in English, so me reading it out won't help if you're only listening in Portuguese, but I want to bring up a couple of questions. If you're talking economy rather than just business, you have trouble with the product service system, because it's just a business model. It's not going to fix your economy by itself. It can be a contributor to a circular economy, but the second question is, or the second point is, close the loop and slow the flow. Some product service systems will certainly slow the flow of resources, but do they answer the question, what's next for the product, or the component, or the material? Because it's supposed to be in a circular economy that waste is food. That waste, everything is a nutrient for something else. So if you have a lovely product service system, and you don't really care what happens to the durable when you've finished, like the light bulbs, you don't care. They go to landfill. You haven't got a circular economy, you've got a much more efficient linear economy through product service systems. Next question is really important. Circular economy adds benefits to users and consumers because it really improves resource efficiency and lowers costs, ideally. But how is the benefit shared between the provider of the service and the customer? If the provider of the service takes all the surplus, most of the time I don't think that leads to any significant growth as a result. It's just a way of increasing what people like me, somebody who's worked in economics for a while, call economic rent. You cannot assume that by lowering the cost you improve the ability of people to spend more on other things. It all depends on how the society is set up. And the points I've made before, you must rebuild natural and social capital, and you've got to redesign system, products and materials to do a circular economy, and product service systems are certainly part of the mix. Let me just give you one, just run through, nearly finished. Bicycle, easy. It's your bicycle. Maybe it is. Traditionally, you buy it. All over the place, we've got communities now. This is cycle.land in Oxford in England. You can make sure other people can use your bicycle by having a little app. They can use it, you get a little bit of money, it's community orientated, it ups utilization. So you're providing your bicycle as a service. But that's of course not very interesting to business because it's community based. It's interesting to the community. They want to do this. This is Mobike in China. Hundreds of thousands of bicycles have been produced which you can just rent through your app, drive around and leave anywhere. That's quite interesting because it's an example of a sharing economy initiative. So you can take the bike, use it and leave it where you want, except it often ends up like this. And actually they don't really care too much because they're not as interested in the bicycle as the data it generates. They're not as interested in the bicycle because it only costs them, from my contact, was saying it's around $10 to make the bicycle in China, approximately. So that's not a big deal. They get some rental in, and other people will have to put these bicycles back. Now they're beginning to relocate them, but this is what you get if you design a sharing service which doesn't fit the system. In many cities, sharing is much more organized, where there are stands or places for the bikes to be docked, to be connected, as in this one here, City Bike in New York. So having a sharing economy might not save any resources at all. If it looks like that, it might end up an attempt by venture capital to dominate a market. We don't know. And it might work that way. But don't let them tell you it's about sharing resources. It's about dominating a market for this type of transport system. Because we'd have to know a lot more before we could say it would actually save any resources. So this question of it fitting a system is really, really important. Sharing economy doesn't equal circular economy, and it doesn't even equal resource efficiency. There are great examples out there. Go-Go-Row is one. This is done as Coop, I think, in Berlin, and it's in Paris coming up. These are obviously electric scooters, which are rentable, but because it's electric scooters, they have to think about recharging the battery. So they have battery charging stations around the city, and also have employees coming around to make sure they're all topped up and good, these batteries. So there is a system and it fits. This is what I mean about a reasonably successful sharing economy initiative. It provides decent mobility in a system where you're not just creating extra costs to society and environment, you're doing the opposite. But last point, since I'm pretty much out of time, for me, for Joe, and many people discussing this around the world, the big thing we haven't talked about, and has to be talked about, is the circular economy as a framework for thinking. It does draw upon the contemporary science of nonlinear systems or complexity. It is really a different framework for thought. And without that, it's just a really good resource efficiency effort. But many people find circular economy interesting because it's redesigning the system. It's a way of thinking which can lead to redesigning the system. And we took our cue years ago, 7 years we've been established, and there's many other organizations as well, with this quote from designer Buckminster Fuller. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. In other words, if the linear economy is no good, don't fight it, just find a better way of doing the economy. It's a systems thing, it's not a personal thing. You know, obviously I'm famous for dieting and nutrition, you know, that sort of thing. I'm a leader in all of that. And for people who used to say, when I went to conferences years ago, how did you get to the conference? Are you being responsible? Did you walk from Uruguay? You know, this sort of thing. Circular economy doesn't play that game. Okay, personal responsibility does matter, but these are systemic problems, and they require systemic solutions. They don't require finger pointing because you rather like hamburgers, or you rather like your car. Design a system in which people, and it's beginning to happen, prefer to take a go-go-row or a mobike where they find the solution better. That's the aim of this, not to point guilt and responsibility at individuals. It's a systems change. Anyway, thanks very much. That's all I've got for the moment.